Okay, guys, so today I'm going to be talking about how I was very, very wrong about the support meta. And then in the second half of the video, I'm going to talk to you guys about kind of how you can learn the meta yourself, how I figure out these different things, because I think that's also an interesting thing to talk about. So initially, why I was so wrong about the support meta. So if you listen to my latest kind of meta report video, I talked about how I thought the tank supports are the best champions overall to play in solo queue, especially engaged supports like Nautilus and Thresh. The reasoning behind that is you can make a lot of really good engages with these champions, you get a lot more playmaking potential, and you overall just have a lot more priority to make a lot more decisions. This has been my experience throughout really the last, I would say, year or two of playing support. I've played a lot of the support role. I've climbed to Sovereign playing the support role, and this has been the general experience. Now, recently with the addition of Cleanse, I didn't really realize how big of a difference this makes, and then also some other kind of confounding factors that all lead to this sort of like shift in the meta. And I hadn't really been playing as much support lately because generally I'd been playing a lot more mid lane, and just in general been playing mostly Thresh apart from recently. And so the last kind of week I've been struggling a lot on Nautilus, and throughout that time I was constantly like trying to figure out what it is that's going wrong, trying to get better, trying to improve, learning a bunch, playing, different styles, different builds, whatever. And, ultimately I don't really like coming to the conclusion of it being an external factor like, champion choice or anything. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of factors that make it really, really hard to be successful on tank supports who rely really heavily on CC like Nautilus or Leona. And that is the fact that not only early game is there a cleanse, but then later on the enemy will have a veil from their enchanter if they're playing the most meta champions like Lulu, Melio, that type of thing. And then when you go later into the game, they're going to have either a QSS or a stasis as well. So basically, it's almost impossible to catch out an enemy carry when they make a mistake because they have so many different forms of peel, and then they also have usually shielding from their enchanter. If their enchanter has CC like Nami or Janna, they also have that, and it's basically just super, super hard to actually catch these champions out because not only do you have to blow their veil, flash, stasis, whatever, but then you have to kill them after you blew all that stuff, and you have to live through that. So basically it's just really hard to be successful on these champions. Now, a lot of people will tell me when I'm struggling, say on whatever support, this has happened literally for years of me streaming. I've always experienced this. It's like, say I lose a couple games on support, the immediate comment is, hey Talon, why aren't you playing a carry support? Why aren't you playing, Zyra, Karma, whatever? Why aren't you playing a carry? Maybe Swain, these types of things. And for most metas, in my opinion, this is not the best way to climb in solo queue because engaged supports have so much agency to make these plays and whatever. However, recently with these these additions of cleanse and then just the enchanter meta becoming so strong, hyper carries being really good, and then the durability patch making it even harder to blow up these people with one full like spell rotation. So now even often they have even better survivability, sustained damage from AD carries is just so much stronger, which makes hyper carries better. All of these reasons just make it so that right now enchanters are by far the best in terms of the meta, but it's really hard to carry on enchanters. So for a solo queue support, what is the meta going to look like? Because again, it's pretty obvious. I just explained all the reasons why enchanters are just the best, but solo queue enchanters don't really have agency to carry. So what's going to be the best? Well, one option you have is to play these higher damage supports right now because they're going to scale better than a champion like Nautilus or Leona would scale in the current meta. They're going to be able to carry because you have that damage to actually kind of, again, you have the agency through damage. Instead of having the agency through crowd control or anything, you have the agency through just raw damage output, which allows you to obviously carry games. So you could play a champion like Karma, you could even play Morgana. Morgana's pretty solid. Zyra, these types of damaging supports that are ranged. Now you could also play damaging tank supports. This is kind of, if you're looking for a tank support that's going to really dictate the pace of the game pretty well, you're going to play a champion like Ornn. Also, shout out to Shyster Nick, by the way. His Twitch, I just want to shout out real quick, is SCHISTERNICK. He's a player who's really, really good at tanks and kind of helped me understand this about the support meta as well, and I talked to him about that. And so I just wanted to shout him out real quick if you want to know how a tank player really gets through this meta. He plays tanks and other roles a lot as well, not just support, but that's just something I wanted to quickly mention. So if you're looking for good tanks to play that have more damage, Swain is going to be pretty solid right now. The issue with Swain is that he struggles into range champions, so I don't recommend him as a blind pick because if the enemy have a lot of poke and a lot of range, then you're never going to get value out of your ultimate because nobody's going to be standing in your ultimate. However, Swain is much better than a Nautilus or a Leona in the current meta for those reasons. Ornn is probably just going to be like the best right now. the reason that Ornn is just so solid is because he has a bunch of damage. He has the ability to roam and help his team really well. He has the fact that his ultimate can pop spell shields easier, and it's not a full commit engage. Like his ultimate, you can engage from long range, which is another important thing, because with a Nautilus or a Leona, you have to go all in. Alistar as well, you have to go all in order to engage, and then if all of that peel that we spoke about comes out, then you're just dead because you have no way out. But a champion like Ornn can just throw his ultimate for free. It's not that scary, and he has higher damage output, which allows for carrying in solo queue. Thresh similarly has higher damage than a champion like Nautilus, and is also non-committal because his first ability, it's a pretty long range ability. You can hook people, you can flay them in, you don't have to fully go in, but you can go in with your first ability, you know, the second part of your first ability if you want to. And so these are going to be the general champions that are going to be better right now. And that's why I wanted to make this video, because I am quite wrong, or was quite wrong, about the support meta, and I kind of had to experience it myself since I hadn't really played as much support recently, playing a champion like Nautilus, whereas before I would play a champion like Thresh a lot. So playing this type of support kind of made me realize it's not as strong as I once thought it was, because of these different changes in the meta that have kind of come over time, where just, again, the durability patch, the fact that there's cleanse, the fact that there's veil, the fact that there's QSS/stasis, there's just so many different things that weren't a part of the game before, because obviously, you know, like cleanse came relatively recently. Again, the durability patch making these higher damage output ADCs better, which makes then the champions like Nautilus, who do better with more aggressive laners that don't have as high of damage output later on in the game, it made those champions worse. And so just all of these factors kind of made these champions much worse. And so, yeah, that's kind of the meta thing right now. You know, play either those more damage tanky supports or the damaging supports like Karma and that type of thing, or play enchanters if you're in duo queue. But if you're in solo queue, do those other things we spoke about right now for the meta. And then quickly, I just want to talk about kind of how like I come to these conclusions in the meta and whatever. I spent a week playing in Challenger, a lot of solo queue games on Nautilus. I would say playing really well in a lot of the games. It's not like I played perfectly in every game, right? But I think I played very well and improved a bunch. Like, I learned a lot from this week of playing support, because, okay, initially I start playing Nautilus, it's like, oh, I'm losing a lot. Well, I'm losing a lot. It makes sense. I'm probably just not playing well enough because I haven't played a lot of Nautilus lately. Let me try to get better at this. Let me learn this, whatever. And so I put a lot of effort into kind of figuring out, like, okay, I changed my rune setup to have a Demolish, for example, on these tank supports. So Demolish was a lot more useful for roams, because getting those roams off and getting those early leads was really important. And so I figured out the early game really well. I was able to get a lot of leads to my support, or to my ADC when I needed to, by utilizing level 2 advantages really well. And then I utilized the fact that I could get prio with my W very, very easily at level 1 to get good wards to track enemy jungle, and then create opportunities to often roam or dive someone, and then use Demolish to completely break that turret and get my top laner a huge lead if my, you know, dual lane I just wasn't able to break through because they had cleanse and other things. And so I was able to get leads. I had a bunch of leads. And if you watch my stream, I was getting very, very tilted because I just kept losing games where we were up a bunch of gold, and then my team would randomly go in and die, or sometimes I would make the mistake and I would be the one dying. And obviously, when you see, you know, you're winning a bunch, or you're winning for the whole game, and then one throw and you lose, you feel like it's not my champion's fault. There's something else to it, right? Because my team keeps throwing. We could have just won the game if they weren't dumb. But the reality is, all of these games are being lost because there's a super fed hyper carry late in the game, who, even if he's slightly behind my ADC, my ADC doesn't have Veil for me, doesn't have like a Lulu ultimate, doesn't have a damage buff, whereas they're getting all these things, and then I can't go onto that AD carry because I don't have, you know, he has cleanse or whatever. So I go onto him, he cleanses, he stasis, whatever, and he's just not going to die, and then I die. And then that's one, you know, throw, and then all of a sudden the game just turns around. Or maybe my teammates do the same mistake instead of me doing it, and then someone dies and the game just turns around. So that's why right now, that's kind of like how the meta works with support, is just because of all these factors. And even after all of these issues that I had, I still spent a week trying to figure out everything I could, getting as good as I could at the role at the champions, because I've climbed to Sovereign playing tank supports in the past. I've played autofill and always had, you know, a really high win rate on support when I'm playing it every time, even in really high elo. And that's why I'm not just going to initially be like, oh, well, it's just not going to work. And then once you make all these, you know, mistakes, you try everything you possibly can, then you can blame, okay, maybe it's the meta, maybe it's something else. But if I just right away was just like, no, it's just my teammate's fault, I just need to play a carry champion, you wouldn't learn as much. Because again, the conclusion that I've had so many viewers come to in the past is you need to play carry champions instead of playing Thresh, for example. You need to play like, you know, a Swain or a more damaging support like Karma or whatever. And they were wrong in all these points, because of the meta, right? The meta was different at that point because there wasn't cleanse, there weren't these other factors present. And when you just immediately jump to the easiest conclusion instead of trying to make it work to the best of your ability, then you're never really going to come to a proper conclusion because you're just going to come to the easiest thing possible. And so the point is, if you're struggling with something, spend some time, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, trying to get as good as possible at that, trying to optimize everything you can about it, learning from watching other high elo players, doing whatever you can. You can obviously ask me questions in my stream, whatever. And then late in the, you know, like process, when you're still struggling, you're just nothing's working, eventually you decide to switch, you know. But it shouldn't be like a quick thing where you're just like, the first time that trouble happens or something kind of goes bad, you immediately just give up, because that's usually how you're not going to improve as much. So that's just like a little thing I wanted to add in at the end as well. But that's basically all I can think of that I really want to talk about with the support meta, why the support meta currently is as it is. And then if you guys know, I'm trying to get Master Versatility level 3. Going to be playing mid lane because I did get quite tilted, to be honest, from playing this much Nautilus. I really did learn a lot, and I'm really happy that I did it. But at this point, I'm a little jaded from the support role, so I'm definitely going to take a break from support for a little bit, go for my mid lane Orianna, Master Versatility. I'm going to try to get her to 12k champ score. Then I'll probably try to get a top laner. And then at that point, I might try to get another laner, like mid or top laner, or maybe I'll try to get a support. And then if I get, you know, 12k champ score on 10 champions, then I'll just go for I'll go for level 14 support role by just playing some of the supports that I have that I have at lower score, instead of trying to get a support all the way to 12k champ score. I know some of you guys don't know what I'm talking about. That's just for the people who know about the Master Versatility stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.